Checked.
Hey, what's going on everyone? So it's Keith here again at Coding Blind Tech, and in this video we're going to take a look at how to create a function in Python and why we use functions in Python and stuff like that. Alright, so we're going to be using NVDA Screen Reader, and we can go ahead and get started. Alright, so I'm going to jump over here to my Git Bash terminal. So I'm going to hit the Windows key.
Start window.
Type git
Git bash comma git /usr/bin/bash dash login dash.
Alright, so now I'm going to go into my GitHub repos directory, and I'm going to create a new folder. So we're going to
CD. CD.
C/C/
Code. Febline repo slash.
Alright, so in here we're going to make mkdir space Python underscore functions. And I'm going to cd space Python
line F dash colon CD colon CD Python
functions.
S.
Alright.
/usr/bin.
So now we are, let me do a pwd.
/c/code/get febline repo /python line functions.
Alright,
Greater.
so we are where we want to be. I'm going to type
touch
space and then main.py
main
to create a file. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is code space dot. Alright, so we're going to look at this in VS Code.
Main.
So I'm going to hit Shift Control E and open up main.py.
Main landmark.
Alright, so we're just going to put a comment here at the top. $, Python functions.
Number Python functions. Blank.
Alright, that's a single line comment. And then below that, what we're going to do is I'm going to write out just an example function, and then I'll explain it part by part. So to write a function, you have to use a function keyword def.
Main.py editor has error.
Okay, it says def, and then space, and then we have a name. I'm actually going to turn the screen reader off and explain it as I go.
Speech mode off.
And all I do is turn the speech off. Alright, and I should be able to remember where I'm at. Alright, so let's explain this as we go. So we have a function in Python. First of all, the reason why you would use functions in Python is because you can create one set of logic or have it do one thing, and then you can use that anywhere in multiple places. So instead of having to write the same thing over and over again, you can write it one time and then utilize it in multiple places. So the parts of a function are the keyword, the function name, the arguments, which go in the parentheses, and then we have the function body, and then also the return statement that is optional. So let's go ahead and get into that. So to create a function, you type def space, and then you give it a function name. So here we're just going to say, we're going to create a function that takes in two numbers, adds them together, and then returns the result. So we're going to call this function add underscore numbers. Okay, so we have def, right, space, and then add underscore numbers, which is our function name. And then immediately after add underscore numbers, we put our parentheses. So left parenthesis, right parenthesis, colon. Now I'm going to move back to in between these parentheses. So I move left twice. That's going to put me in between the parentheses, and now I can write my arguments. So right here, we need to take in two values. We're just going to say x, comma, space, y. So x will be our first value, and y will be our second. And the way you separate arguments is with that comma. When I put the space in there, that's just formatting, and it's standard PEP8. Alright, so if I go to the end of this colon now, with the end key and I press enter. So what this is going to do is it's going to indent me 4 spaces or 2 spaces depending on your editor. And then that lets me know that anything inside of this indented block will execute when this function is called. Okay, so inside of the function, you usually have your function body, and then which holds your function logic and then returns a result. So in this case, we can actually just do return space and then x space plus space y. And again, those spaces are not necessary in between the x and the plus and the y and the plus, but it's just good for code formatting. The space in between the return keyword and the x is required. All right, so now what I'm going to do is let the screen reader talk again so you can hear what we just did.
Speech mode beeps. Speech mode talk. Main.py editor, blank. Def add line numbers left paren, x comma, y right paren, colon.
All right, so you hear def, and then add underscore numbers, and then x comma y colon. That's your part. So you have def as your keyword, that's def again, and then you have your function name, and then you have your arguments in between your parentheses. All right, if we go down the line,
Def add line numbers left paren, 4 space return x plus y.
You hear 4 space x or return x plus y. All right, and what this is going to do again, it's just going to take those two values, it's going to add them together, and then it's going to return it. All right, so what we can do now is I'm going to show you how to run this function.
Blank.
So I'm just going to come down a couple lines.
Space. No intent, blank.
And the way you run a function is you type the name of the function, and then in parentheses, you pass your parameters. So for us, we're going to create 2 variables. We're going to call the first variable x space equals space 4, and then
4.
we're going to do on the next line y
Main.py
equals space 5. Okay,
x equals y dash 5.
and we're actually and then I'm actually going to delete those variables
X equals 4. X y dash 5.
because I don't want to
5.
confuse.
Blank. Blank.
Sometimes it's just easier to look at the values when they're just put into the arguments itself or the parameters. So let's do that now. Now it's going to return a value. So we're actually going to store this function call in a variable. So we're going to say, so add underscore first underscore set underscore of underscore numbers space equals space, and then we call our function
circle main
underscore numbers, and then left parenthesis,
X.
we're going to put 2 comma 5, and then right parenthesis. So again, to call a function,
blank, add line first line set line of line numbers equals add line numbers left paren, 2 comma 5.
You first use the name of the function, and then in parentheses is going to be the parameters that you want to pass to that function. And you kind of add them in just like we did the arguments above in the actual function definition. And then with the comma in between each argument. All right, so we've stored it in a variable because again, it's going to return the result.
Add line first line set line of line numbers equals add line numbers left paren, blank.
So if we go to the end of this line, press enter, type print, left
main.py editor has autocomplete multi-line print left paren.
And then our variable that
add line first line set a. Add line first space on print left right paren.
So I just copied that and then come down and I put it in between the parentheses and the print statement.
Add line print left paren. Add line first line set line of line numbers right paren.
Okay. So now we're going to control S. And we're going to come back over to our git bash.
/usr/bin.
Okay. And we're going to type clear. So because I want to clear the terminal, and then we're going to type Python main.py.
7 greater.
All right. So we get 7, and that's what we expect, right?
Main.py.
So that is how you write a function. And it's very simple.
Add line.
Let me go to the top again.
Number Python functions. Blank. Def add line numbers left paren, x comma, y right paren, colon.
So on this line again, what we have going on is we have our keyword that this is how we let Python know we're creating a function. It's def, D-E-F. And then we have a space, and then we have our function name. And you'll want to make sure that you name your function with a good name. You want to try to write your code like you're telling a story. So we want to make sure that we have names that make sense, right? We don't want misleading names. So we have our function name, and then we have immediately after our function name, we have our parentheses. And inside those parentheses is where your arguments go. Now again, your arguments, you can have as many as you want, but you really want to keep it down to as little as possible because you don't want a lot going on in one function. So in this case, we have x comma space y. All right, so those represent the parameters that are going to be passed. And those are called arguments when you see them right here in the function definition. All right, so if I down arrow.
4 space return x plus y.
And of course, the colon on the end of that line is just to state that on the next line we're going to go indented because we're actually going to go into the executing block for this function definition. All right, so if we go to our next line, let me let you hear it again.
No indent blank. 4 space return x plus y.
So we're 4 spaces in now, and we have our return word and a space after that, and then we do x plus y. All right, so what that does is just going to add x and y, and then it's going to return it, right? We're kind of working right to left here. We're gonna add x plus y, and then we're going to return it. All right, so a couple things to note on the error side is if you pass 3 arguments into this, so if we did 2, 5, and 7, it would throw an error because that function does not expect that third parameter to be there. All right, so you have to make sure that you're passing where down here at the bottom.
No indent. Add line blank. Add line first line set line of line numbers equals add line numbers left paren, 2 comma, 5 right paren.
Right there, add underscore numbers left parenthesis 2 comma 5. So if we were to add a 7,
line right paren,
so comma 7 and save,
7. Slash.
come over to our get bash and clear, then up arrow twice.
Greater Python main.py.
Python main.py, press enter.
Trace back left paren, most recent call left.
Right, so we're gonna get an error, a traceback. Now, when you read these errors, I'm on a laptop, but if you're on a big keyboard, you can do insert, your big 0 and then your 7 or 9. So I'm actually on a laptop, so I'm gonna use my caps lock key and up arrow, down arrow.
32 space 20, 5 space add line first line, 32 space type error colon, add line numbers left paren, right paren, takes 2 positional arguments but 3 were given.
So right there, the last thing we have is a type
32
error.
space type error colon, add line numbers left paren, right paren, takes 2 positional arguments but
It's basically saying our add numbers function, it expected only 2, but 3 were given, right? So it's going to fail immediately. So that's one thing to know.
main.py dash.
Now, if we come down here to the very bottom,
add line first line set line of line numbers
and let's say that we didn't store this in a variable, right? Nothing would happen. It would add the 2 numbers that would be executed, and nothing would happen. So that's why I stored it in a variable and then print it out. Now I can most certainly take it out of this variable.
Equals add line left paren 2.
So I'll just go over
left
here to
add line numbers.
Add underscore numbers, and I'm gonna hold down the shift key and then press N.
Add line numbers left paren, 2 comma, 5 comma, 7 right paren, selected.
That's just gonna select that function call with its parameters, and what I'm gonna do is Control X.
Print left paren.
And then from where I'm at right now, I'm gonna hold down the shift key and press hold.
Add line first line set line.
We're gonna delete this variable.
Space. Print line feed.
And then this line. Now I'm a down arrow.
Print left paren. Add line first line set line of line.
So now where we call our where we have our variable in between these parentheses.
Blank. Right paren. Add line first line set.
I'm gonna take that out.
Unselect. Blank. Print left paren. Right paren.
So now you hear print left parenthesis right parenthesis.
Blank. Right paren.
Now in between these parentheses, I'm just gonna paste what's on my clipboard. So to hear that, I'm gonna show it's a NVDA modifier key, or so for me it's caps lock C as in Charlie.
Add line numbers left paren, 2 comma, 5 comma, 7 right paren.
right? You hear on our clipboard, we have our function. I'm going to paste it, Control V as in Victor. Now we need to take that 7 out.
Blank. Right paren.
So I'm going to go to the end and left arrow
Right
twice.
paren.
I'm going to delete twice.
7. Space.
3 times.
Comma.
Get that comma out of there. Now we're going to save, Control S, and then we're going to run our function.
Slash U. Slash.
So over here, we're going to clear and get bash clear. Press enter, and then we're going to up arrow twice.
Greater Python main.py.
Or press enter on Python main.py.
7. Greater.
All right, there we go, and then we get our 7 again.
Main.py.
All right. So one more thing I want to show you because I've only got one line inside of this function.
Blank. Blank. 4 space return x plus y.
So let's say that we wanted to do some validation here, right? Let's say that we wanted to make sure that x and y were integers. So the way we can do that right off the rip,
No indent def add line numbers left paren.
is if we go to where we actually name the function, and we go to the end of the line,
Line feed.
and we press enter.
4 space.
All right, so right here, we're going to go ahead and say x.
Main.py space x.
We're going to say, we're just going to say x space equals space int
Main.py
left
x colon.
parenthesis x.
Suggest list. Main.
Right, and what this is going to do is it's just going to take an x and make sure that it gets returned back as an integer. And then if I go to the next line,
Line feed.
press enter and do y
Main.py
equals space int
main.py
left
x colon.
parenthesis
Suggest
y.
main.
Right, this is just going to do the same thing.
Return x plus y.
All right, and then return x plus y. So if I go down here now
No indent print left.
to the bottom, and I go to where my 2 and my 7 are,
Blank. Right paren. 5.
or my 2 and my 5.
Space. Comma.
So
2.
if on the left side of the 2, if I hold down shift and press right arrow,
2 selected.
and then I do a quote, so shift and then tick mark, which is right next to your enter key.
2 selected. Quote.
And now let me read this to
2.
you.
Quote. Left paren.
So it's left parenthesis,
Quote.
quote,
2. Quote.
2 quote. See how I put the quotes around it instead of removing the 2? So we turn that 2 into a string. Right now they're just integers.
Comma. Space. 5.
We're going to do the same thing with the 5. Go to the left side, hold down shift, press right arrow.
5 selected.
And then shift tick mark so we can do a quote.
5 selected.
And it's
5.
going to
Quote.
surround that
5. Quote.
right there with quotes. See? Or hear it, I should say.
Blank. Print left paren. Add line numbers left paren. Quote 2 quote comma. Quote 5 quote right paren. Right paren.
Now we're adding 2 numbers, but they're strings, right? So 2 plus 5, if I was to add 2 strings together, it's just going to become 25.
Right paren.
Okay, and I'll show you that right now.
Number pi blank. Dep force y equals int left.
So
X equals
my x equals int left parenthesis x right parenthesis. I'm back on that line. I'm going to
x.
comment that out and the y equals int left parenthesis y.
X equals int left. Y equals int left paren. Y.
So to do that, I'm going to highlight both of those lines and press Control /
T left paren. Y.
And we're going to save this.
No indent. 4 space number x equals int. Number y equals int left.
And you hear that I've commented those out with the number sign. And when I run this,
/u /
let's see what we get back. So I'm going to clear, and I'm going to do Python main.py, and I'll give you time right now to put in the comments what you think it's going to be. I'm going to press enter, and then we'll look at our feedback.
25.
And you see 25, so you hear 25. So if I uncomment where I turn where I do a validation of making sure x and y are integers,
Main.py.
so I'm just going to Control Z to undo that.
X equals int left. No 4 space y equals int left paren.
You hear x
X
down
equals int left
here.
Y x equals int left paren. X right. Y equals int left paren. Y right paren.
All right. So now if I save this, I come back over to Git Bash and I clear. And I clear it every time just to make sure I don't hear old output. And then if I
greater
twice,
Python main.py. 7.
There we get 7. All right, so that shows you quite a bit about functions in Python. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at codingblindtech@gmail.com. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, especially if you're not subscribed yet. That really helps out the channel. And feel free to leave any questions in the comments as well. So I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.
Main.py OBS 30.